commissions, which are set by our citizen appointees, are all set in the afternoon. If you look on towards the back pages, Public Utilities Commission meets at 3:30, Parks and Rec meets at 4:30, Planning and Zoning meets at 4:30, Virginia Airport meets at 3:30, Library Commission meets at 5:15, Human Rights meets at 5:30. So I just think that if we look at it from that point of view, I think a 3:30 in the afternoon meeting, it's a lot easier for me to find childcare in the afternoon than it is in the morning. I just think that is something I'd like the council to consider once again. Then I would also like to add under council agendas, is that the separate point? Nope, that's all. Section B, point number 7, we combine the commission liaison and department head reports. What I'd like to suggest is that we have a counselor input, a commission liaison, and then a department head report. So there would be 3 different items. Sometimes I feel like counselors don't know they want to say something, but they don't know where it fits in the agenda, and I'd like to give us a place that specifically we can count on each meeting, that it says counselor input, and we can share whatever it is that we have that is not related to a commission liaison report or a department head report. So, and then I also need to note that the resolution needs to be dated January 4th, both at the top of the first page and the bottom of the second page. So that is my input and my suggestions as we move into a new 2-year cycle for the council.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Johnson. Before we go to the other councilors, we will make that correction note that the city resolution is January 4th, 2021, as opposed to January 5th, 2021. And we'll hold those suggestions in abeyance at this point in time, Councilor Johnson, and we'll move for questions or comments from other councilors. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I had also made a note on under scheduling A2, just the time because we have special meetings held at different times. The other, I'm going to skip down under council agendas, under B, agenda items, number 2. The consent agenda will include A, variances as recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission. And what we're currently doing, we're going by those variances one by one and not putting them on the consent agenda. So the new movement that we're being asked to consider or put in this resolution is that they're going into the consent agenda. Is that correct? So we would not be going through each one of those variances. We would just take the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Committee within that consent agenda?
It is in the consent agenda, and if a councilor has a question or comment, they can pull that for further discussion.
Don't we usually go step by step, though, through each variance underneath?
We do under the consent agenda.
Actually, under discussion items usually. Yes, you're correct.
Yeah, so are we wanting to, I mean, I'm fine changing that if we are wanting to just take the recommendation under the consent agenda. I'm comfortable with doing that. I just wanted to note, is that a change? Because that's not how we're currently doing it.
Hello.
Pam?
Right now, it is going under item 8, I believe. And so then you have the planning and zoning with the minutes and then their recommendation. So it's never been on the consent agenda, as long as I've been here anyway. It's always been a separate. So we could adjust that to put it separately. Otherwise, I have a feeling that if it's under the consent agenda, we'll be always pulling something off to discuss if there's a discussion. So I guess maybe it would be better if we just eliminate that altogether.
And maybe I can ask our city attorney, what have other cities followed in terms of planning and zoning, and then where that might fall under their agendas?
Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor. It really is a mix. A majority of cities handle it the way that Virginia traditionally has, where they'll have a liaison report from a representative from the planning and zoning will present present, but I have seen them included on consent agendas in the past.
So I guess I would just, whatever the recommendation is to keep it the way we did, or just to change the language then within the resolution. And then the other, and I would assume this is fine to bring this up, in terms of our committee of the whole meetings and our committee structure. I don't know how the council would feel about this, but sometimes I feel like the committee of the whole meetings get really, really long if they were in their, meeting in terms of a committee, that work could get done maybe quicker and then be presented to the committee of the whole. I know there was some drawback in terms of, what would you call it, like a quorum. I think that was part of one of the issues with going back to a committee structure. Just sometimes I feel like you can flesh out a little bit more, ask a little bit better questions in maybe a smaller circle with a committee structure. But I don't know how everyone else feels about that, and I just thought I would bring that forward in this reorganizational setting.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. So let's take a look at some of the recommendations that are being changed and make a suggestion and talk to each individual one. First, of course, we'll make the correction of the resolution. Secondly, under item scheduling regarding A2, special meetings to be held at 5:30 p.m. on the first or third Tuesdays. That could be changed as a recommendation, a request made by Councilor Johnson, special meetings to be held as needed. We don't necessarily have to have them at 5:30. We've had special meetings before. We can deviate under edge circumstances anyway, but if you want to add that in as part of the resolution, we could certainly add special meetings to be held as needed. Does that make sense to Councilor Johnson?
Yes, Mayor, that's exactly what I was getting at.
Okay, thank you. So let's look at this one. Brian, we would take a vote on this based on a change at the reorganization meeting. We would take would it be a motion be required to do that, or could we just make those changes?
So long as all of the changes are agreeable to the council, we could probably take it as one full motion at the end.
Very good.
Essentially that the resolution be adopted as amended. But if there's conflict or discussion, it may be fruitful to break those items out if there's a split within the group about how it should be handled.
Okay, I think in anticipation for some additional discussion on some of the suggestions that were made by the council, let's take it one step at a time, looking for a motion to change the resolution under item A2, a special meetings to be held as needed.
I will move that, Mayor.
Moved by Councilor Johnson. Is there support? Support by Councilor Freely. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Baraboo.
Yeah, Steve, you're talking about eliminating the 5:30 for Tuesdays and Thursday, correct?
Yes, because I don't know in the last 2 years we've ever had a special meeting at 5:30 on an off Tuesday.
No,
These are
just got to
just-
make sure that's clear that we're eliminating that.
Yeah,
Okay.
just because we can still have them at 5:30 on the off Tuesday, we would just need to define it. I think it just leaves it,
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that, just so that we have a time stated when we have the special meetings.
Yeah, as needed,
That's
so we
right.
we have more flexibility in the time, which we have over the course of the last couple of years, done so as needed. So, okay. And the next item that was requested was the committee of the whole meeting under item, scheduling item C2, to change that to the afternoon hours. And so I would open that up for additional discussion. I'm sorry.
Mayor, I believe we've got an open motion on the floor as it relates to number
Oh, I'm sorry, that's right. As it relates to number,
under scheduling A2, I believe that there was a motion to make a change, but we never called the vote.
I'm sorry. Thank you for the clarification and the reminder. That's motion in support on the floor. Is there any further discussion on that change? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Lindsay. We'll go to item C2, Committee of the Whole meetings. Councilor Johnson is looking to maybe hold that in the afternoon as opposed to the morning. I'm looking at, the other committee meetings that are held. Those are scheduled by those committees. I mean, those commissions. They want to hold their meeting at 4:30. They make a request to hold it at 4:30. Is that correct, Pam? So we don't set those times. The commission, each commissioner, or each commission and their liaison to this commission sets their own date, time that they meet, and then we post that. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. So the question, the answer that, or the concern, the issue on the table here from Councilor Johnson is to move the committee hold to the afternoon hours. It works better for some people with childcare and those kind of things. So I open that up for particular discussion. I'm not available usually in the afternoons, but I don't have to be at the committee of the whole meetings if the councilor decides that it's more prudent for more councilors to be able to attend. Councilor Freely.
My concern would be that moving it to the afternoon could potentially conflict with other later afternoon meetings that are already pre-scheduled, commissions and committees. So, and from my own personal perspective, being retired, and I apologize to those that aren't, coming in the morning on a kind of a business day type has been advantageous to me to then get on with my day with other tasks that I would need to. So my concern first and foremost would be if we move that to a later time in the afternoon, it could conflict with other meetings that are being held already at those times in the afternoon.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Johnson? Anything?
I would wait for everybody else who wanted to have input.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. For me, I think it's a little challenging when I have a business schedule as well. So, I'm definitely flexible. It was a little tricky for me even doing Zoom for our busy seasons. So afternoons are maybe a little bit more lightened up for me. But again, I would like to have a more broader discussion on the committee side of it or as well, because I don't think that we would be here, when they go from 9 to 1 or whatever, that's very challenging for me. But if we had it broken down into committees, I think those meetings would be shorter and work would get done quicker. So I think that's part of my larger discussion. I'm definitely open to hearing what the rest of the group, the consensus would be, but it does present a challenge when the meetings have gone on 3-4 hours into our busy business time.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Councilor Beyondich, any comments?
Yes, thank you. I would also like to lead in on that. I know when I went down for the training for being a new council person, many in the room that we sat in were younger, and I just wonder if we change the time of that, if more people would be encouraged to partake in our city politics. Having it the time that it is very challenging for anybody that holds a job. So I would like to see it go to later. And sorry, my dog's in here with me. And give other people the opportunity to participate as well. And I also like the idea of going back to a committee structure where we could be in smaller groups and have more discussion and come back to the council with information that we possibly, with all of us going into different, being on different groups, that we would have more insight to what's going on. So that is my comment. Thank you.
So if you could clarify, you would prefer them in the afternoon? Okay, very good, thank you. So I'd like to hear from staff. Is there an issue, having afternoon meetings? The reason I look at this, and as Councilor Paulson had indicated, looking at the committee structure and maybe having more committee meetings, I know based on experience that, regardless if we have committees or not, the committee whole would go longer as well, not quite as long as we usually have, obviously, for whatever reason, but breaking that down, may or may not shorten the time frame, but it sure adds additional, time to those councilors that sit on those, and maybe some councilors have a concern about the quorum, but that committee structure is something that ties into this. But for me, is regardless of whether or not we have the committees and shorten the time frame, if you have a committee of the whole meeting at 3:30, and 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock is not really an acceptable time. It's in the middle of the day. So if you have it from my perspective, so if you have it at 3:30 and these meetings go for another hour and a half or 2 hours, that puts our staff, beyond the work time, and also encroaches on some of the other commissions' times as well, as some of the other meetings that are held, unless these commission meetings and other liaison meetings are held not in the afternoons on the first and third Tuesdays. So I guess those are my comments. I mean, I prefer the mornings myself because it's easier for me as an individual. But, and for the general public, I guess the question I have, is it better for them to be able to come at 3:30 in the afternoon as opposed to 9 o'clock in the morning, or participate in, by Zoom or in person? I mean, I don't know what that is, but I think it creates some more challenges as we move to the next item for discussion is the committee structure. And I know that we have committee meetings. I think under if two members of a committee wants to call a meeting, they can certainly do so. And of course, that's a public meeting, 2 members, has to be posted, and staff members have to be present to take the minutes. And so, which isn't an issue, it's been that way before. But I think if Councilor Bearable will be weighing in about, how often some of these committee meetings can go on, and sometimes for lengthy periods of time, sometimes 1, twice, 3 times a week, or 4 or 5 times a month before it gets vetted out. And by the time it gets to the committee of the whole meeting, the committee has had a chance to vet it out, but the rest of the councilors have not. And so the question was, well, if the councilors want to come to the committee meeting, they can. So, that's that whole discussion moving forward. So I would open that up for Councilor Barabou's comments.
Thank you, Mayor. It's still wide open for us to have any committee meetings that a councilor so chooses. We have the members of those committees, and depending on how this goes, they probably won't change, I don't imagine, unless there's angst to have people on other committees. But we all have the opportunity to go to any one because they're all posted. I go to a few every once in a while, but some of these other meetings get pretty long. I know our street and alley meeting gets really long at some points in times, and it's. But we always try to call the members of the committee ahead of time to make sure they're all available when we set the time for a committee. That's just something that Britt or Pam do for me on the street and alley committees, but we've had some pretty long ones lately because we've had so much work, and we've got another pretty extensive one coming up here that we're looking at a date on here probably next week because we have a bunch of things we have to get done, and when we get those done, we send out, or at least we try to, and I believe Pam's been sending minutes from those meetings to the rest of the council, so we know ahead of time before the committee of the whole. I personally prefer the committee of the whole in the morning, myself. I just think later in the day it's going to interfere with some of the other things, and I apologize to those of you who work, because I worked for many, many years as a counselor, and we had all these early meetings. I just had to reschedule my schedule with people covering me, so I know it takes time and it's extra work, and I don't know if you people, probably Steve, you don't have the luxury of that. And Julianne, I know it's tough on your significant other when you have to do that and your help. But close of the day, is that any better? Because that would be a close of the day for you probably, so. I would prefer the 9 o'clock meetings.
Okay, thank you. We have, we're tying both together. We probably, we're going to act on C2 and then go to the committee meetings as well. But, if you're a member of a committee chair or two members of the committee can call a meeting anytime they want. Doesn't have to be 9 o'clock in the morning. It can be in the afternoon. It can be any time. It could be any day of the week. Preferably not Saturday or Sunday, but any during the week. It could be, so you could hold a committee meeting, and the committee, if they feel that they need to meet and talk about a subject, they can call a meeting as they wish, notify the city clerk to post it, and you hold your meeting and discuss things if you want to drill down as to look at a specific issue. And it doesn't need approval by the mayor or the city clerk or the city administrator. Two members of the committee can call that meeting anytime they want and have a meeting to meet on a specific subject if they feel that it's appropriate to do so. And so, so right now, the issue is the committee of the whole meeting. And so, all this is another committee meeting, but it's the committee meeting of the whole, which involves all the councilors which are present for those areas. So let's act on C2 unless another councilor has any more comments. Councilor Paulson?
You're on C, okay, C2.
Yes.
Well, I guess what I would have to say is that I think in terms of the professional people that come forward to the committee of the whole meetings, it's probably in a better schedule in their life or their presentation time to come and present early in the morning at the city hall. For most any presenters that are coming up from Minneapolis or whomever we have. So I would agree that time is probably a more amicable time for city business to get done. I think, again, this ties into more my issue would be that committee structure. And, I mean, if everyone's leaning more toward that 9 a.m., I definitely am flexible and have been flexible. And, I mean, it's my role to serve the public that elected me, so I have no problem doing that. I just, when they get to be that 4 hours long time frame on time spent, that I believe would be a little bit more better usage of time if the committee structure were a little different. So that's just my take on that. But if the rest of the council is feeling that 9 a.m. is the best time, I will go along with that.
Yeah, thank you. I think we'll go to Councilor Johnson and then over to Councilor Baraboo. At 9 o'clock in the morning, we have a committee of the whole meeting. If it's a point where the discussion is going to go beyond the pale, in other words, if we need to short look, it's going to be a long discussion, we could certainly refer that back to committee for the committee to meet and vet that out even further. So we could shorten those committee of the whole meetings down when it comes to some of the areas that are broken up by finance, personnel, public works, those kind of things. And so most of the time it's going to be a finance issue, a street and alley, public safety issue, or it's going to be a issue related to whatever committee structure it is. So we could actually, and I think we've done that, maybe not as frequently as we probably should or could, by referring it to committee for additional vetting and discussion and bringing it back to the council instead of having the committee whole meeting last for 3.5 or 4 hours to try to accommodate those people who have business schedules in the morning, and it makes it difficult for them to come there. So that being said, did you want to retort Councilor Paulson before we move to another councilor?
No, whenever we'll talk about the second item, I think that's the comment that I was going to make, sorry.
Okay, very good. We'll do that. If you could hold that comment for a moment. Councilor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. I guess to your point that you clarified that these other commissions are setting these meetings, and that's exactly what my point is that our citizens that we have appointed who have jobs are setting these meetings in the afternoons because that's when they can attend. And I feel like one of the challenges we have as we move forward is the idea is to get new people to come in and more people to run for office. And the 9 o'clock is a hindrance to people who are not retired or who do not have full-time jobs to running for city council. And to me, that's, if I go all the way down, that is at my base. That people think, I can't be on the city council because I can't attend 9 a.m. meetings. And as we're doing here, having this discussion, yes, you can. You can come here, you can be a elected city official, and we can decide to change the time. So I just really need to make that point. I won't agree. I don't think we should be meeting at 9 a.m. I think that if people want to attend to business with the city of Virginia, they'll show up when they need to. People who are getting planning and zoning variances show up with no problem at 4:30 in the afternoon. People who need to do business with the public utilities are showing up at 3:30 in the afternoon. The staff that come to our 9 a.m. meetings, for the most part, would still be working on most Tuesday afternoons. Britt does a great job of texting them when they can come in so they don't have to be sitting here throughout their day. I think it's just a huge change, and I think that's, and I respect that. In a previous job, and I'm very lucky that the job I have now is not full-time, so I can arrange my schedule. I can find childcare during the school year. It's not a problem. She's here now, so that I'm just trying to, Brian, maybe you can answer a question about other working cities. When do they hold? Is there a generality of when other cities hold their working or committee of the whole meetings as opposed to their regular meetings?
Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor. And Councilor Johnson, the committee of the whole structure that you've got in Virginia is fairly unique because you're a larger city. It gives a better opportunity. I believe the other cities that hold committee of the whole meetings typically hold them in the mornings or during the business day, but a vast majority of the local cities don't hold committee of the whole meetings. So
I appreciate that, and I think that kind of speaks to Councilor Paulson's question about the structure too. So I will bring this up every year until if it ever gets changed, as long as I'm sitting in this room, about having afternoon committee of the whole meetings. I think it's important to our citizens. I think it allows for people who need to be here. Again, if someone needs to come in, they're taking time off of their work day to come talk to us, and it may be a half day or a full day, or maybe they don't come in because there's not access. So and obviously I'm not going to get up and walk out if I don't get my way. I understand how democracy works, but that's just where I'm at with the afternoon meetings, and I appreciate everybody else's input, and I would love to be in a position where it didn't matter what time the meetings were, but and again, looking, there's already 2 meetings that are held. There's no the Library Commission meets the 3rd Tuesdays at 3:15, and the Human Rights Commission, when it meets the first Tuesday at 5:30. So, and I know that the library adjusted when we went from 6:30 to 5:30 2 years ago. So that's all. I appreciate everybody listening and the input. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. Councilor Baraboo?
Yeah, just to make things clear, I wasn't talking about committee meeting times. I was talking about the committee of the whole times at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, that's what Councilor
I-
Johnson, right, go ahead.
With the committee of the whole, I'm concerned also, Councilor Johnson, that if we start at 3, and these meetings aren't going to go just an hour and a half. Staff is done at 4:30. And we're going to end up with them carrying over and either going to overtime or comp time, mostly comp time for the staff that does the minutes and stuff for us. Plus the fact that people coming up in the months that are questionable to do stuff for the council, in the winter months especially, they got all the time in the world to come up the day before. If the weather gets a little iffy, because most of them stay overnight anyway when they meet here at 9 o'clock, then they get an opportunity to go home during the daylight hours. And I'll tell you what, you don't want to be driving in this bad weather if you end up with bad weather in the wintertime. So they might end up having to stay another night. So I'd prefer to see the presentations in the morning.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Bearbook. Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Since we are now in the season of hybrid things, I'm going to maybe offer a hybrid solution, if I may. So typically, when we all meet together, it's for finance. Is that correct? Finance is one that we're all together. When I just looked up our different committee, the whole agendas, most of them have appearances, and then finance, there's sometimes personnel, buildings and grounds, and then other items. So I would say that if we could potentially have a committee of the whole meeting with appearances, with finance, and with other items, those are the groupings that we actually do need to be together. And then if we could take the other committees are the building and grounds, which does meet frequently, and personnel, which seems to meet frequently on the agendas that I've been just looking at. The two that don't meet as often are street and alley, public safety, and insurance. They're not quite as frequent. If we go back to all the different committee of the whole agenda packets. So I am wondering if we could meet as a committee of the whole every other Tuesday, whatever time is designated the best and most comfortable for everyone, and that would take into the appearances, finance, and other items, and then on the rest of the committees, buildings and grounds, personnel, insurance, and street and alley, then be called by the committee as they are needed at the committee level. Would that be something, because then it would shorten the meeting of the committee of the whole, whether it's held at 9 a.m. or later in the afternoon, staff would be able to be gone, and then the buildings and grounds personnel, insurance, street and alley committees can meet at their convenient times designated within those committee structures. When I looked at one of the agendas on the under buildings and grounds, it's discussions, review change orders, and I guess me personally as a city councilor, I would be fine with the building and grounds committee meeting and then putting a recommendation forward for the rest of the council to approve. So I guess I would have more faith in allowing those committees to do the work that they need to do and then come back and put that under other items or, whatever in with a committee of the whole structure. But that way it's kind of breaking it up. The things that we always meet about under the committee of the whole are going to be any appearances, all finance, and any other items. So that's something that maybe I would offer as a bridge to 9 o'clock versus 3 o'clock meetings or what have you, if we break that up into the specific items that we all do need to be present for. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's just kind of reorganizing and itemizing the things that we do truly need to be together at a committee of the whole. And sometimes the other items are more within the discussion could be held within that committee and brought back to the committee, or it could be brought back to the next council meeting if they had everything organized and resolved, I would assume. So that would be my hybrid recommendation. If there's any takers.
Okay, thank you. One of the questions I would have, for you or Maya? Counselor Biondic? Okay. Counselor Biondic, you have a question, comment? Counselor Biondic?
Thank you. Yes, thank you. I am also in agreement with trying to change the time of the meeting. Over the past few years, when people have talked to me about city issues, and I do ask them if they would like to be involved, if they would ever run for office, and not one of them said they would run because of the length and the time of the meeting. So it really hampers who we have in office and could offer some great ideas for the city when they can't possibly every other Tuesday be gone from 9 till noon. So I would also continue to push for trying to have a meeting when other people could possibly be involved. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And to go back to what you had, Councilor Paulson's issue about the hybrid system, for me, a question I would have about that is, so you have one committee of the whole meeting, or two committee of the whole meetings, one for finance, other items of concern, yada, 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 and then the following week you have your committee meetings. Well, right, is that what you're proposing?
No, I was
Did I
just saying, as the
misunderstand?
committee of the whole, if you're meeting twice twice a month regardless,
Okay.
the three main items that are
Right.
happening are appearances, finance, and other items of concern. The other items, the other committees are basically just injected into the agenda
Right.
as they are needed. And what I'm saying is, I would be comfortable with the Buildings and Grounds Committee, which consists right now of Baranzelli, Beyondich, and Friedlieb, of having their discussion on that and bringing it forward, whichever committee of the whole, they would have to meet prior to a committee of the whole, I would
Right.
assume.
Yeah, which was done prior, before we made the committee structure changes to one committee of the whole meeting. So, yeah, that was.
But I mean, that's just a suggestion to try to maybe break up some of the, not only the lengthiness, but to also have the committees that are, say it's Buildings and Grounds, then they get used to their committee, and they've kind of become more expertise, have more expertise in that, because they're meeting in a closer knit, having a more closer knit discussion. So, and I'd be completely comfortable trusting the committees to come back with a recommendation on some of these items. So that's I guess my feeling. You know, when we've done with personnel, we've done some personnel committees, just as the personnel committee, and then we've also done personnel committee of the whole, which is fine, and I would say I trust the personnel committee to do their job. Just like we had a few counselors doing different interviews, we shook it up a little bit, changed it up a little bit. And I don't know if what I'm asking is if I'm being clear on what I'm saying, but the things that we meet about on a consistent basis during the committee of the whole are the appearances, the finances, and other items. The other committee things are injected as needed, as we need to meet or discuss about those different committees.
I understand what you're saying, I do. So the question I have, then once again, before we go to Councilor Bearable, if I may, Councilor Bearable?
Go ahead.
Is that I'm concerned about staff as well. So every time you have a committee meeting, you have to have staff there. You have to have somebody taking minutes, you have to have, somebody there. So once you have your meetings, what happens if you have, 5 or 6 meetings, or 3 meetings in 1 week plus the committee of the whole? So you're taking away staff time, individuals take those notes. Then the committee comes before the committee of the whole to discuss it, and then it discussed even further with the other councils, so the other councils have to be brought up to speed as well, and once they get brought up to speed, then it goes to the council for action, to the council meeting. I, if not comfortable having a committee come before the committee of the whole meeting, or come directly to a council meeting and say, this is our recommendation, because the other councilors aren't educated about that issue. When you're meeting as a committee of the whole, when everybody's involved, everybody has the same information in real time. And so that's an issue for me, having it in real time, and the time it takes for staff. Yes, these meetings are long. We can break them up in some regard if we wanted to. I think that if the Building and Grounds has a concern maybe with respect to your hybrid proposal, that if it's something that may warrant some additional discussion, the mayor, of course, and the city administrator calls sets the agenda for the meetings, but, does the mayor rely on what's the issues that come before the committee of the whole comes from our city administrator and her staff. So in the event that maybe it warrants more discussion, it looks like there'll be a lengthy discussion about Building and Grounds, it would be referred to the Committee of Building and Grounds to do that very thing. And I think, so that would be a notification of that the city administrator would have with each individual committee chairperson. And so that would take some, time to do that as well. So, I look at it from a time-sensitive thing for me, and with all due respect to you, Councilor Paulson, and Councilor Johnson, and Councilor Biondi said, for me, when I first came on as a city councilor, I was still working full-time. And I had to commit myself to a committee of the whole meeting and all these committee meetings that I was involved with. And I couldn't make half of them because I was working. I work a schedule. I didn't have flexibility to my schedule, so I couldn't come to a personnel committee meeting every time. I couldn't come to the Building and Grounds Committee meeting every time because it was taken away from I didn't have the schedule. By having it scheduled one time, the adjustment can be made at that time to my work in order to accommodate that. So going into one meeting, I prefer that. But in respect to your hybrid system, that's something I think that warrants more discussion, I think, from Councilor Bearable, and then we'll come back to you, Councilor Paulson, Councilor Bearable.
Yeah, if you recall, recently, we've pulled out the Street and Alley Committee many times, and Britt will attest to this. We just pulled it from the Committee of the Whole, put it to the committee. And we've been meeting, what now, almost 2 years, Britt, over this last stuff, and Steve will attest to that too. And there's times I need to bring stuff back. That's why we're doing the minutes to everybody, to a Committee of the Whole, because we need to push it forward to a council meeting because there are certain things we have to do. Example, we do all the nighttime meetings on the feasibility studies. That involves the public, and we usually start those at 6 o'clock at night. So people, when the feasibility studies are done, we've got a series now of street stuff coming from 21, 22, 23, 24. It's going to involve $22 million, and it's a tremendous job because we have to coordinate with the SCH, our engineering firm, and everything, and then we have to coordinate with you as a counselor. And Steve will know those meetings take a little bit of time too, correct, Councilor Johnson? When we have those, they take. I don't think we've had one under an hour, at least. But their information, and we just had to coordinate with the school district here the last meeting to decide, and now we've got a meeting coming up probably next week where we'll finalize a route when they do demolition and stuff that'll have to come back to the council for approval, but it's done by staff prior to that and with Cross Anderson and the school district when we remove all those tear down materials from the elementary school here. We now have the proposed route, and I think you've all gotten that in your emails, correct, Brett? I believe they all got them. So you can see that we're trying to coordinate, but things can be just pulled out of a committee of the whole and sent to committee. That's not an issue. I have not had an issue with that since I've been chairman of Street. Now I just asked for it to be done, and it's done. But it does take time. The committees take time also.
So we're talking about, we have I don't know, do we have a motion on the floor? We don't have a motion. So it's C2, setting the time for the committee of the whole meeting. That's number one. And so we could set the time. Let's look at if we're going to do that. And then we'll look at what the agenda items are going to be for the committee of the whole. This is the committee of the whole is going to be held in the council chambers. This just tells us under C2, under the resolution, that it's beginning at 9 a.m. on the first and third Tuesday of the month. So, Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes.
I think the reason I'm combining the two is because it would depend on how we go would determine my vote for 9 o'clock or not. So
I see.
think that they're intertwined with one another.
Okay. So the agenda items on the committee of the whole meeting, you're suggesting, the hybrid model.
Well, I
So
mean,
if we do that, go ahead.
thank you.
Councilor Paulson.
In terms of what you're talking about, staff time, so the insurance committee meets once, twice, maybe a year. Street and alleys have been going into committee structure pretty often and pretty much the whole time. So that doesn't come into the committee of the whole unless it needs to be brought into the committee of the whole, and that's my point. So one committee, Street and Alley, is already doing their meetings as committee meetings. So the personnel or buildings and grounds are the only two that are really left, and each counselor is only on 2 committees. So in terms of the scheduling of a meeting, it shouldn't be that difficult for anyone. And if you're only meeting on 1 or 2 agenda items, your meeting wouldn't go more than a half hour long unless it was a very significant meeting, which then would go into a committee of the whole, which I would like to see the structure work more like what Street and Alley is doing, where the committees are meeting, and then when it's needed, then it comes into the agenda of the committee of the whole. And that's what's been confusing to me, because one committee is already doing that, but the others aren't. The others are just a part of the committee of the whole. So I think that's where I'm getting a little, what are committees good for if they're not going to be working committees? When we're all here discussing, we could all be here discussing for 4 hours Street and Alley, but we don't want to do that, so.
Thank you. Well, first, we'll go to, thank you. Could you hold just one moment? Councilor Paulson will go to Pamela Bean and then over to Councilor Freely. Pam?
Okay, thank you, Mayor. And I think what I'm about to say, Britt can probably attest to this, and I believe that most of the items that come through on Building and Grounds or some of the other committees are just basic one-item approval. So there is no need to have a special committee meeting for those. That's why they're added on to the committee of the whole agenda. So basically, it's a quick discussion where there isn't a need to call a separate commission meeting to, and everyone gets $35 to go over one item that goes back to the committee of the whole for approval and discussion again. So I think that's kind of where those items have just been added separately, and not having those special meetings for commissions. And then the other thing too, and I know Sherry has discussed this with me as well, if we do go back to those finance, I know a couple years ago we increased the pay to $100 per meeting as we were adding more onto those committee of the whole agendas. And so then the pay got increased versus the $35 for every meeting that is held for a commission. So that would be something to look at too. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Councilor Freely and then to Councilor Johnson. Councilor Freely.
I guess I've, in the couple of years that I've been involved in this, I have found the manner in which we've conducted business to be very efficient and quite effective. And I guess I'm of the adage, let's not try and fix what really isn't broke. I mean, it is working for us. We are effective, we are efficient, we make decisions in a timely manner typically. We do have some extended conversations and discussion and dialogue that is necessary to come to some sort of consensus or a resolution. With regard to people who can't come, haven't come, won't run for office and so on, to be involved in public service or even to come to address a body such as ours, people that need to will make time to. They'll find time to. If people want to be involved in public service, they will step forward to do so, regardless of the time frame. It's not a matter of convenience with regard to whether or not you're going to do public service. It's something that you choose to do because you're going to make the time to do that and take the time to do that. So I mean, we've had a long, lengthy discussion here, and in part, I'm starting to sense and feel that we're trying to fix something that's not really broken. And so, and I know it's an inconvenience when you're raising children or you're running a business and there's other things in your life that take priority and precedence at times, but the reality is, as an elected official, what you're doing here with this body is your priority and your precedence at any given time during the day. As much as I'd like to assist in the convenience of altering things, I just don't think for the benefit of us as a body, that benefits everybody per se, including the city for that matter. So I guess I'm just of the mind, and not to mention the fact, for example, when you refer to committees, I've never been invited to or been told when a building and grounds committee meeting is actually being held. I have not attended one in the 2 years that I've been here, even though I'm one of the people on the committee. So I'm assuming that those kinds of things come to the attention of the city clerk or the city administrator. They put that on the agenda. If there was a necessity for an actual meeting or committee meeting to have been held, I would have been notified of such and would have attended such. And so I guess the way we come together as a committee of the whole provides us sort of what Mayor Cuffey was alluding to, kind of in a cumulative, aggregated amount of information for us to discuss and discern to come to a resolution. So I'm of the mind that we're kind of at a point where things are working, and I think they're working well. And if you flip through the other meetings in the area, there are other city council meetings that are not as effective and not as efficient and not as professionally run as ours have been and are. And so I really would like to see us maintain that level that we're at right now, as opposed to trying to change something that's not really broken per se. So, thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Freely. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess one of the unspoken frustrations I have is this exact meeting. We have asked multiple times in the last year or two that we discuss the committee structure, and it's always, it'll be put on another agenda, it'll be put on another agenda. So finally, we get to have our discussion tonight, so I'm grateful for that. One of the things that I know I need to be better at is making sure I'm reading the agendas and the packets before I sit down in this chair. It really gets hard to come in and try to read through things either for the committee meeting or for the council meeting under discussion items and then have something come up. So that's one of the things I am going to work on personally as re-elected officials, so that I can ask whichever relevant staff the questions, because they are all very good about answering emails. So that's just one of my things. And then one of the things I think we forget, that there's a Minnesota statute, and I looked it up, 21B.10 subdivision 2, time off for public office meetings. A person elected to a public office must be permitted time off from regular employment to attend meetings required by reason of the public office. The time off may be without pay, with pay, or made up with other hours as agreed between the employer and the employee. When the employee takes time off without pay, the employer shall make an effort to allow the employee to make up the time with other hours when the employee is available. No retaliatory action may be taken by the employer for absences to attend meetings necessitated by reason of the employee's public office. And I have had to remind former employers of that statute. So to kind of relate to what Mayor Cuffey was saying, there is a law that protects us as well. So I see both sides, and I'll be absolutely fine moving forward. But we also have some rights as elected officials and some special responsibilities that are some special rights that go along with our responsibility of being elected. So I think that everybody's made excellent points, and I agree with Councilor Paulson that these are very interwoven. My point was just to move the meeting later in the day. That was my question, and I appreciate that, again, that we've actually been able to have this conversation in this room with everybody present. So I'm fine to leave it as it is, and I will not be making a motion to change it.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. So we had some significant discussion. So even though they're intertwined, let's take each one separately in a separate motion. So I'm looking for council action on item C2. The committee of the whole meeting will be held in the council chambers beginning at 9 a.m. the first and third Tuesday of the month. If there's a conflict, they can be held on Wednesday. So that's what it reads now. And so If there's a conflict, maybe they could be held at another time, but I think the purpose is to be able to conduct the city business, and that's why the following business day was put in this many years ago to accommodate that, I'm sure after significant discussion. So I'm looking for council action under C2.
We really don't need any if we're not going to change it, correct? Correct?
Right, but there is no council action. I am asking for if there is or not. Okay, so thank you. So the next item, which is kind of intertwined with, is the committee meetings, and that is, where are we here? What's the next, what was the next item on the, that we were going to discuss, Pam?
It would be under council agendas B2. Item A would just be removed if everybody's good with that, and then it would be put under discussion items.
Run that by me one more time, please.
2A would be removed to being on the consent agenda. It's for the variances from planning and zoning, and we would just maintain our same ritual with it being under discussion items as we had in the past.
So,
So there would just be a motion to remove 2A.
okay,
the consent
thank you.
agenda.
I don't have a problem with being on the consent agenda, but we have been doing that. We've been having under discussion items, which is okay. I think Councilor Paulson had alluded to it didn't matter one way or the other, but Councilor Paulson.
I don't mind if they were to be on the consent agenda, I mean, we're pretty much recognizing, I mean, I'm fine with whatever the council wants to do, but what we have been doing is we've been taking the recommendations pretty much the whole entire time. So I would say unless one needed to be pulled, I don't know that we would constantly be pulling them off the consent agenda if the the Planning and Zoning Commission is recommending that. I don't know that we've ever denied a denial or denied an approval.
We have.
We have.
We have?
We have.
So then that would be an item that would be pulled.
Right.
I'm okay with whatever the rest of the council would want to do.
Well, right now, what we're doing now is having another discussion items, and that seems to be working. So like Councilor Freeman said, if it's not broke, don't try to fix it. But I would ask, is there a question or comment that you have, Britt, with respect to this?
I don't have the factual information, but I have a niggling something in the back of my head that there's some kind of statute that requires, because it's a change of plating, that we would have to have motions made for every one of these, and I think that's why it's under discussion. It's like I said, I don't have it off the top of my head, it was just something in the back of my head that I kind of remember when I used to work in engineering.
And I think that makes sense.
It was why we
So-
had it under discussion items, so we could take them each by property.
So it's been working. So B2 would be, we're talking about B2A, which is removing A from this resolution. So instead of having variances recommended by planning and zoning on the consent agenda, it'll continue to remain under discussion items like we've always had. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Bearable and then Councilor Paulson.
I think Britt is correct on that assumption, because you'll notice even on one piece of property, a lot of times there's multiple things that we have to approve by motion or resolution on those, because they'll change one portion, the back portion, then the side portion, and we have to act on each one of those separately. So I believe we should leave it as is.
Okay, thank you. So Councilor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. I guess it's the reason that I brought it up to begin with is because of the way it's listed on the resolution. I mean, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I don't want to have that label put on me this evening, because I'm not trying to fix something that's not broken.
No.
I am trying to ask a question as to what is in this resolution that didn't make sense to me.
I'm glad you caught it, thank you for.
Yeah, and
Please don't label me as broken, don't fix.
Oh, no,
person.
I look at it from what we did before and what we're doing now, and the question you asked is absolutely prudent, because I was wondering why it was under 2A as well, because it's always been under discussion items. For you to catch that way, I appreciate that, because
Thank you.
it needs to be done. Councilor Bearable.
Just a quick comment. when we get everything from planning and zoning, we get the reasons behind it, all their information, and I would be concerned if we put it on a consent agenda, we wouldn't see all that information.
Okay, looking
And I,
for,
and I read all that information on those because we have had controversy in the past.
okay, thank you. Looking for council action to remove 2A from the resolution.
Also move, Mayor.
Moved by Counselor Bearable. Is there support?
I'll support.
Support by Counselor Barnzelli. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. So, let's see. The next one, I think, if I recall correctly, is B7, which is a request, come, I think, by Counselor Johnson to look at commission liaison department head reports, but maybe council reports as well. Is that what you're asking, Counselor Johnson, just to add a council member? Yeah, no problem. Yeah. Commission liaison departments or council report?
Yes, Mayor. And I just did notice that number 6 should just be committee reports, not committee of the whole reports, because that is where those other committees come in when we do have those other committee reports.
So we just put, change 6 to committee reports.
Yeah, it says of the whole, and that's usually, if I remember it. My point, Mayor, was just to separate, add a line for council reports, and then separate liaisons and department heads, because they are different. A committee liaison is different than a department head, so I just think if there was adding another line in there, so there was, so 7 commission liaison report, 8 department head reports, 9 council reports, and then that would allow, I think, I know I would feel more, that, and then I would know that was where my place is to say what I wanted to say about National Adoption Month or that kind of thing. I think that would provide a better, so I would move that for the sake of expediency and discussion.
So you're going to move item B7 to read, items B7 to be commission liaison,
Correct?
8 department head reports,
Yes.
9 council reports,
Yes.
and 10 adjournment.
Yes.
Thank you.
Support.
Moved by Counselor Johnson and supported by Counselor Freely. Further discussion?
Yeah,
Counselor Bearable.
I think we have to go back, Steve, where you want to just have a committee reports, that'd have to include the committee of the whole report though, too, because Britt does that. You have to have both, just committee reports from, if we have committees, like street and alley or whatever, you have to include committee of the whole too, because Britt gives that report.
Yeah.
So we
Good
don't want to,
point.
yeah, we don't want to remove both, we want both in there. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but it's just committee reports because that is a committee. Right now, it's exclusive to the committee of the whole.
No, I want both added in there. Committee reports and committee of the whole report.
Maybe it's a subdivision.
Mayor?
Yeah.
Okay. Pam?
So on the council agenda, we usually note what they are. So we usually have committee of the whole meeting and then the date. And then if there was a commission meeting, we have street and alley commission meeting and a date. So yes, it would include both, as Councilor Baraboo says. We could read it as committee of the whole report and commission reports,
Not commissions or.
or committee reports, sorry.
Okay, so,
Report encompasses all of those committees, including committee of the whole?
right. But if there's a separate committee, under item A, it would be committee reports.
Correct.
Committee of the whole,
Or
or,
street and alley,
In-
or
sorry, so-
insurance,
You don't have
or
to list them, just,
so on the agenda, it'll say what? Okay, so under 6, it will say committee of the whole report.
I'll say committee report.
And then
Yep, item number 10 or 9, whatever it usually is committee reports. And then A is committee of the whole, January 4th, 5th. B is street and alley, January 7th. C would be,
yeah, but I just want to, what do we want the wording for under item 6 here?
I would suggest committee reports.
Just committee reports.
Yep, and that includes committee of the whole and all other committees.
So that was the original request by Counselor Johnson, to just leave it as committee reports, which includes committee of the whole, which includes the other committee reports as well.
Correct.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you. So, let's take action on item 6, a request to change item B6 to committee reports and take of the whole out of there. So to just say committee reports, looking for a motion.
Point of order,
Hang on, Pam?
So we have a motion by Counselor Johnson regarding number 7, 8, 9, and 10. We could just add number 6 on there as well, and then we would need a second.
I would amend accordingly.
Okay, Counselor Johnson amends according to item 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Thank you, Pam.
I'll amend my support.
And Counselor Freely amends his support. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, the rest of the items, the conduct for the meetings. Item 1, Robert's Rules of Order will be used as a guide. 2, the mayor will introduce the agenda item, and 3, the mayor will recognize the department head or council to provide pertinent information, as we always do. This is what we've done in the past. Is there any request to change in the resolution regarding how we conduct our meetings under item 1 through 4 under conduct for meetings?
Mayor, it should be items 1 through 5.
I'm sorry, 1 through 5?
There's a typo on there, yep.
Oh, yeah, okay. Under item 1 through 5, excuse me, thank you. Under conduct for meetings, under 1 through 5. So is there any questions, concerns, or comments regarding how we conduct our meetings? Okay, let's move to the last item, which is department heads will not be required to attend city council meetings unless requested in advance. I think years ago, they used to have to attend all our meetings, and many times they never had to participate, so it's after hours, and so unless they need to be here, not necessary for them to do so. So under department heads, number 1, does anybody have a request to change this item under the resolution? Okay. All right, thank you. Everybody, that was some spirited discussion. We made a few changes to the resolution. Pam, you have all those changes. And so once those changes are made, then we'll have to, we can enter a motion to pass the resolution with the amended changes, correct? Thank you, Brian. Brian? Thank you very much. Okay, looking for a motion to pass this resolution as amended.
So moved, Mayor.
Moved by Counselor Johnson. Is there support?
I'll support, Mayor.
Support by Counselor Baraboo. Is there any further discussion? Yes, some discussion. Counselor Bernzelli?
I did a long time ago, Mayor.
Oh, I didn't see your light on there. Oh, there.
That's
Sorry.
hiding.
Sorry about that. I apologize. So please.
When, this was probably 20 minutes ago.
I apologize. I didn't see your light on
Not
there.
your fault. I could talk, but 12 years ago, coming on this council, there were 2 councilors over there on that side that had jobs. They had to be here at 9 o'clock, and then after, they had to make that up. We have, you know, they all have jobs. They knew they had a job before they came on the council. So what do we do? So we've got it resolved, but that's what I've been hooking on here for a
Well, I apologize. I didn't see your light,
it's all right,
Counselor
Mayor.
Bernzelli. I apologize for that.
fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
No big deal.
Okay, it's been moved and supported to pass the resolution with the amended changes. Moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, this concludes our reorganizational meeting. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Recommended changes in the spirited discussion, and we'll move on with the new resolution and begin 2021 like we ended 2020 with the dedication to serve the public as best we can and carry forward the mission of our city. So, seeing no other business come before the council today at the reorganizational meeting, Councilor Freely.
Are the committee assignments remaining the same then from 21 on through?
Very good point, thank you. I apologize for not bringing that up. I left the committee structure the same. There are no new city councilors that were elected. All the incumbents have retained their seat and have the expertise in those areas. And so I didn't make any changes unless somebody would like to change their service on a specific commission or a committee. We can certainly make those changes now or later. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. As a point of order, the Evelyn, Virginia Airport, we are not liaison and alternate. We are appointed board members. I think the appointments should reflect that appropriately, that we are both full-time members on the Evelyn, Virginia Airport,
Oh, the Airport Authority?
whatever we are.
Yeah, so we can move it to the committee page rather than on the commission page.
Okay.
Since you were actually on the,
We'll move that to the committee page.
yep.
So Councilor Johnson and myself will serve as board members as opposed to commission liaison. Thank you.
And then do we need to continue on the Essentia Board of Managers as that process is almost done? Where are we sitting with that?
I did speak with Pam with respect to the Board of Managers, and I think Councilor Paulson was sitting on that to some degree, right?
Some degree.
And so my question is then, is it really necessary to have this? I think we had this conversation. Pam, could you answer the question?
Yeah, that was for the Hospital Advisory Commission.
Right. So the Hospital Advisory Commission was made up of 3 members of the community that would sit as a buffer if there was any concerns or comments about Essentia and according to the lease. Now, that committee has been not meeting, it's been defunct. The members no longer can serve on the committee. And so the city attorney that sat on the case, so I would recommend that it doesn't serve any useful purpose anymore.
I think there's 2 different boards. One's the advisory,
Right.
and the other is an actual board. Is that correct?
Right. The Board of Managers is what you sat on.
Okay, so what is listed, what is the question on here? Oh, the Board of Managers or the,
I think the question by Councilor Johnson was, do we need to continue with this Board of Managers appointment? Councilor Bearable?
Yeah, you still need to continue right now until the ownership is changed over, because that ownership hasn't been changed over yet. But the Hospital Advisory Commission, that's defunct anyway, you can get rid of that off of there. They no longer need to be there. We don't, unless you want to leave it until they actually own the hospital grounds.
Yeah, the Hospital Advisory Committee, which would be Councilor Freely and Councilor Beyondich. It's not something that is really used anymore. I mean, we've never had a meeting on the Hospital Advisory Committee because even though it says as needed, we have the Board of Managers, I think, until the hospital is transferred over. We still have that Board of Managers position, but the Hospital Advisory Commission was originally formed because there were some people that are on the Virginia Hospital Commission that they wanted a say in how this lease was moving forward and looking at the lease agreement with Essentia Health. And once go ahead, Councilor, actually you're shaking your head, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying the lease is done now, so.
Right, the lease is done.
That commission.
And so that's commissioned, really, the Hospital Advisory Commission is no longer necessary, no longer needed. Is that the question that you had, Counselor
No,
Johnson,
Mayor,
or
my,
not?
my
What is your
commission
question?
specifically is about the Essentia Board of Managers and
Okay.
the necessity to have a counselor on that when what is the purpose? We have asked Counselor Paulson questions, and she doesn't know what she can and can't share from them. There's a lot of classified information that's discussed during these meetings. It's, and this land deal is maybe happening sooner than later, maybe? Okay, I'm getting a laugh from the, I guess, what is the point of having a city league councilor sitting on this board if she is not able to come back and report to us what's happening at the meetings?
I think, if I may, real quick, is I served on it before, and it was mostly a pacification to have a city council present to listen to some of the plans that Essentia Department has to try to assure that representative on the council, me at that time, that they're moving forward, that they're trying to provide healthcare closer to home, and they're trying to meet the terms and conditions and the spirit and intent of the lease agreement. That was a purpose. But when sitting on that board, there was a requirement under Essentia Health that there's certain information you cannot share because it was private information that we can't share to the public. So, number one, that's the reason I got off. And number two, I was required by Essentia Health to get a flu shot at that time. Not being an employee of Essentia Health, in order for me to sit in that board of directors, I couldn't even get a waiver. I mean, I was required to get a flu shot. So I stepped down. Councilor Paulson stepped forward because she had some experience working for the Essentia Health in that regard. And so would you share your concerns and your comments and your question, maybe that you can answer for Councilor Johnson?
I guess I would just say the city wouldn't have a necessity to have anyone on the Essentia Board of Managers after the land transfer. Is that correct?
Brian, our city attorney, Mr. Lindsay?
Thank you, Mayor. And that's kind of what's been rolling around in my mind as I'm sitting here listening to the conversation. We have a tentative close date set for the hospital transaction, which is the end of this month, January 31st. It's not set in stone, and there's some things that have to happen before then. But my thought is, what we may do is we could just leave the status quo in place at this point, just in case something comes up if we need those positions. And then as of the close date of the land transfer, those things would become irrelevant and essentially would dissolve in their own terms.
Okay, very good, thank you.
That answers my question, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. Thank you, Councilor Paulson. So that's recommended by our city attorney that it stays until the completion of the sale of the hospital, which is status quo. And the Hospital Advisory Commission, I don't feel a need that we need to have this anymore. I see our city attorney says, no, it's no longer necessary. It was a bridge during the lease agreement process. So I would ask that, and I don't know if it's the decision that the council makes by motion to eliminate the Hospital Advisory Commission from our commission liaisons. Very good. We do it at a regular meeting?
I don't think the dissolution of that.
So we could move that to our committee whole meeting tomorrow as another item of concern? Okay, very good. Okay, thank you. Councilor Freely.
Brian, if you get a chance, I'd be interested to know, like, if there's anybody from the city of Duluth that represents a commission or a committee with Essentia down there. It's like, I think we should have a voice with an entity such as large as Essentia in our city. And hopefully, by having something similar to this available, then we might be invited to the table, at least for a conversation with regard to what their plans are for the future. Or not, but at least it would give us an avenue from which to travel, so to speak.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that Britt Sam Stone, the CEO of Virginia, had been meeting with you on a regular basis, giving you updates about moving forward, and you were during discussion phases with our city attorney and sharing information you can during the course of this sale. So right now, we still have Counselor Paulson on that, Counselor Freelieb, so the recommendation is to keep there on there. So we'll take that appropriate action and discuss that further at the next council meeting. Okay, thank you. Counselor Baraboo.
Yeah, Gary, just for your edification, that particular board that you're talking about, that Counselor Paulson sits on, is also, it's the community board. There's 4 other members besides Julianne are appointed from the community by Essentia on that local board. It's a local board. Then they have their higher up board, so that'll, I believe, will still continue from, my wife sits on that board, and from what she's told me, it's still going to continue. So we could still have somebody from the council on it if they so chose to apply for that position.
Okay, thank you. Anything else that a counselor wants to bring forth with respect to the commission liaisons and the boards and the appointments thereof? Counselor Johnson?
I guess, Brian, maybe, or the staff, if we could have a summary of how we connect to have these other committee meetings. I think one of the biggest fears that a lot of us have is that if I talk to too many counselors about having a meeting, suddenly I've broken open meeting law rules. And if 3 of us counselors are out having an adult beverage and not talking city business, there's gray areas and fine lines and stuff. So if we could get something put together, and then we can use it for the future. As new counselors come on, here's some guidelines. I know we've asked the League of Minnesota City to do something, and we created I'm sure Britt in a folder somewhere has something that we kind of created to also inform all of our commissions and all those other. I think this is a good time that we once again go out, and I'm more than willing to volunteer to go out and help people understand when you're on a city commission how to be safe and how to not break open meeting laws. So if that's something, if I need to make a motion to direct you to do that, I can. Otherwise, if it's something you're willing to put together, I'd appreciate that.
Yes, Mr. Lindsay?
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Johnson. Okay. Any other questions or comments regarding the appointments? Okay. Now there's no other further business to come before on the Reorganization Committee. We will stand adjourned, and we have a committee whole meeting tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Thank you, everyone.